episode, it is now time that we are about to get into the grand finale. And on this grand finale, we are going to be discussing about one of the crazy things that has happened during the weekend, but specifically with what happened online amongst animation fans. Because again, I know there's been plenty of controversies that have occurred, especially with what happened during the BAFTAs and stuff like that. But I want to go and put my focus onto what happened online, specifically with one particular indie animation show and its creator. Because so far, it looks like it has unfortunately revealed a dark truth about the cartoon community, something that they have been saying for quite some time, and yet it doesn't actually feel true, in which their actions very much contradict their own words. Because we've heard of this all the time, that animation fans love indie animation, that animation fans must go and support indie animation at all costs, especially when it feels like the medium is in peril, the medium is in danger. And now we gotta go and look at indie animation to go and save the day and put these creators on a high pedestal because we know they'll make something better than whatever Disney or Illumination would go and put out. But the fact is, even if we keep hearing this again and again, especially from like even the bigger cartoon reviewers out there, like you would hear people like Saberspark or Shafrillas or the Roundtable would go and often discuss about this, it doesn't really sound true that animation fans or the cartoon community actually cares much about indie animation, or especially that they care about indie animators. Because what happened during the weekend, it feels like they don't at all. So with that said, let's discuss about what happened to Gooseworx. Now, as you guys know, Gooseworx is the creator of the Amazing Digital Circus. But recently, it looks like Gooseworx has had enough with the fan base to the point where she ultimately deleted her Reddit account after being massively harassed. And not just being harassed on Reddit, but also on Twitter as well. Because of course, if there's going to be harassment online, then Twitter has to be involved in some form of capacity. Ironically, there is a Reddit post here specifically from the subreddit YouTube Drama that does explain the details as to what happened. So I'll just go and read you from my source here on Reddit, in which it says here, recently, the Amazing Digital Circus fandom has become increasingly toxic. Gooseworx commented on Reddit, "What if the show focused on someone too stubborn to give up, on someone too stubborn to be saved?" It is also revealed in a live stream after episode 7, she confirmed that Pomni and Jax are the main characters and is shocked fans are furious at her focusing on Jax. This has led to many fans of the other characters getting furious and even harassing Goose to the point where she just deleted her Reddit account after trying to reassure them that other characters like Ragatha would still get focus in the final 2 episodes, as well as still harassing her on Twitter. I find it insane. This is Gooseworx's story, and it's not even over yet. It's also been clear that Jax would be a major character, and he's the biggest opposition to the main message of the story, that there's meaning to be found in a stagnant life. I understand being upset your favorite character didn't get as much screen time as you'd wanted, but don't harass the creator. Fan fiction exists for a reason. So that's pretty much the main thing that is being highlighted, is that Gooseworx got massively harassed over the fact that she decided to have Pomni and Jax, the main characters of the series, in which it is already established that they are the main characters, that in the next episodes, they will be the main characters. And apparently people got so upset to the point that they felt like they had to attack Gooseworx And she ultimately had to retaliate by deleting her Reddit account. Even when she tries to go and reason with them, it's just not enough, and she had to go and bail out her account entirely. Now, it is also worth noting, by the way, that recently Glitch Productions, the studio behind the Amazing Digital Circus, did put out a message in regards to what happened. This is a message they put out specifically on Twitter, and it states right over here, "Hey y'all, we've seen some of the recent posts online surrounding Digital Circus and its community and wanted to take a moment to address it. Right now, there's a lot of noise online, and we know it can be exhausting and really makes something you enjoy feel darker than it really is. However, when we think of our fans, we think of the artists pouring their hearts into every piece of fan art, the cosplayers bringing these characters to life in ways that genuinely move us, the people who show up to every discussion with thoughtfulness and heart, and the ones who have built something genuinely special here. You are what this community is really about. The majority of this fandom is made up of people just like you. We've had the privilege of meeting many of you at conventions and across social media, and what we found is a fandom full of kind, creative, and passionate people who genuinely care about the stories we tell. This is what truly defines this fandom. We've also seen the enormous amount of love and support from many of you for Goose since this has unfolded, and it's meant the world for her and us. She feels really supported. What you've all built around this show, the friendships, the art, and conversations is all real, and that's what really matters. Take a moment and be kind to yourselves and each other. This community means something special to us, and we love you all, from the Glitch team." And honestly, I gotta say, as I was reading this, the more I look into it, the more, I'm not gonna lie, this doesn't sound like a good way to go and address this. This sounds a little bit more like PR control in order to save the image of the Amazing Digital Circus than to actually go and address the toxicity. That this feels like a message in which they care more about their reputation and the reputation of the fandom more so than actually calling out the actual problem. So honestly, in that regards, yeah, not the best word to put out there, Glitch. Honestly, you need to do better. And like, yeah, sure, I do believe that your fans are great and the majority of them are nice and good people, but that still doesn't change that there are still some bad ones out there that let this crap happen. So I'm just saying, yeah, honestly, this is a bad move on Glitch, at least in my opinion, in that regard. Also, I do want to go and also address that there is a little bit of misinformation that has been spread around, in which there's a social media account you may have seen from Toonhive, in which they, when they were spreading the news about what happened to Gooseworx and the whole controversy with the Amazing Digital Circus, they went and put out a message in which they kept sharing a post that was from Gooseworx, in which she would go and say, "Oh, I wouldn't touch Digital Circus with a 10-foot pole after making the show, once I'm done," and stuff like that. But in reality, that is actually something that is completely taken out of context. And if I may go just on a quick side rant here, this is why I honestly do not like any of these types of accounts. Like these accounts that are meant to be like, "Oh, we're here to go and quickly spread animation news so that you would be on the know," and stuff like that. Honestly, like those types of accounts, I find them to be bullcrap. I find them to be manipulative. And I honestly find that they're more like grifters than they are actual animation journalists. And this doesn't just limit to Toonhive either. Honestly, I would go and categorize them on honestly, I would categorize it with all of them. Not just Toonhive, but also I would say the same thing with Cartoon Base, since they have had a bit of controversy also. There is also Cartoon Base, Toonhive. The Rise and Fall of Nickelodeon is another really cringy one. And even Veilski Bum as well. Like, I know the dude, like, nothing against him personally, but I feel like he's doing exactly what Toon Hive and Cartoon Base would do, but just in video form. And not to mention also when it comes to the like even the more broader ones, stuff like Discussing Film or Culture Crave, they're all, you know, they also feel like exploitative grifters as well, who sensationalize the news in order to go and grab engagement and in order to get attention. Like all of those accounts feel like they're made more for the engagement more so than to go and share proper information for people. For me, honestly, I don't feel like they are proper sources, and they all deserve to be blocked more so than to have attention. But anyways, that's just my little side rant on those stupid accounts there. But with that said, I want to go back into the main issue in particular, and that is animation fans harassing they would go out of their way to go and harass an indie animator because of like petty just petty creative decisions. Like, just because they don't agree with the direction that it is going, and then they would go and have this type of reaction right here. Honestly, that is just that's just wrong. And honestly, I feel like it's something that we should learn not to have that kind of behavior, regardless of whoever it may be. It's just bad in general to go and harass it. You would think that people would learn from Mr. Enter's mistakes over a decade ago with the way that he would go and treat like SpongeBob and Teen Titans Go and the people behind them and stuff like that. You would think that they would learn their lesson. But no, honestly, even if Mr. Enter has significantly grown since then, the cartoon community, however, certainly has not. And they are still expressing that harassment to this day. And it's honestly ridiculous. And this is what really highlights an example as to why they do not, pardon my language, but they don't give a shit about indie animation, and they especially do not care about indie animators. In fact, this is exactly why I feel like, honestly, the cartoon community hates indie animators more so than they do with animators in mainstream studios. Because the thing is, when you look at an animator in a mainstream studio, they got a shield that prevents them from getting that type of harassment to go directly towards them. And that is the fact that they work under a major corporation, and that they are those executives that would often go and take the blame. Like, at least they got that going for them. Now, this is not to say that they never get harassed whatsoever, because we've seen from time to time animators and filmmakers getting constantly harassed by the animation fandom because of whatever stupid petty reasons that it may be. Like, we just saw last year how the cartoon community actually does not care about Sony Pictures Animation, because regardless of how much they claim they love K-pop Demon Hunters, it certainly didn't stop them from harassing and attacking any animator who has openly expressed that they have worked on Fixed. So not to say that it doesn't happen that the cartoon community still harasses any of the any animator from a mainstream studio, but generally the blame would be shifted towards the companies and the executives. For example, any animator who works at Disney or Pixar, for example. Whenever you have the cartoon community that absolutely despises a movie that they would go create, rather it be something like Lightyear or Wish or Moana 2 or Elio, for example, their anger would be directly towards the Walt Disney Company and executives like Bob Iger, instead of any of the creative people at those studios, like the directors, the animators, the writers, and stuff like that. But when it comes to indie creators, on the other hand, They do not have that luxury of having someone higher than them. They don't have a Bob Iger or a David Zaslav or a David Ellison or a Ted Sarandos or anyone like that. Like, they're technically on the top of their own creative food chain. Like, they are the person behind that particular indie creation. And in that regards, whenever the cartoon community unleashes their toxicity, they unfortunately have to get the massive bulk of it. They would end up getting all the harassment from the community just because of their little petty decisions. Again, there's no executive and there's no company that they can go and target. So the only one that is left is just the creator. And that's exactly why they just don't have any cares for the people behind any of those cartoons in general. It's pretty much one of the main issues of the cartoon community, in which they value the product itself more so than they do than the people behind them. Because the people who would go and make these cartoons, regardless if they're mainstream or they're independent, that is completely meaningless. For them, what they care a lot more is just the product. And if ever there is some kind of like creative conflict, or if it goes into a direction that they don't necessarily like, then they're just going to go and straight up attack the creators. Like, if anything, creators are just there, and like the people behind them, they're just an excuse to go to blame if the product that they would go and create doesn't necessarily go and meet their standard. And that's why, again and again, we have been seeing this unfortunate story be unfold. And I can guarantee you that Gooseworx is not the only one who faces that type of problem. We all know Vivzy Pop is a very prominent example of someone who is constantly getting so much hate and harassment because of her works like Has Been Hotel or Hell of a Boss. Now, I have all the respect for Vivian Madrano, but honestly, the toxicity that surrounds these shows is honestly why I had to go and step back, and why I'm personally hesitant to even touch upon those series in particular. Like, it's like how people are just unsure to go and check out The Mandalorian and Grogu because of the toxicity of the Star Wars fandom. I honestly personally feel the same way about Hell of a Boss and Has Been Hotel. It's mainly because of the toxicity with the entire discourse. You know that it has gotten so bad where I'm a lot more comfortable openly discussing about politics than I am discussing about Has Been Hotel or Hell of a Boss. And again, this is nothing against the series themselves. It is nothing against Vivian herself. In fact, like I said, I have all the respect and admiration for her, and I do applaud her for the great success that she has been having. But it's just the online discussions from both the haters, and I'll even say some of the fans as well, because their track record isn't great. Like, honestly, it's just been way too much. So yes, but the point is that I do agree, like, the haters can be so much worse than the people who do love the show. And in the case of Vivian Madrano, she's another indie creator who's been getting a lot of hate and harassment. And even to this day, it is still going on. And then at the same time, like, you also got like other indie creators. I'm sure they could go and share their stories about the harassment that they would get from fans just because of creative decisions, just because fans have that stupid mentality of believing that, oh, well, I know more about this show than you do, which is honestly ridiculous. But even like another prominent example is actually with a recent one is the Knights of Guinevere, where fans got massively upset and they attacked Dana Terrence because of the idea that one of the main characters, I believe Frankie, turns out not to be trans, and that she actually confirmed, no, Frankie is actually cis. And that upset many people and caused quite a stir with that show in particular. And honestly, I could go on, and like, this is just like with the prominent indie examples. Like, this doesn't even count like with any of the smaller creators who would go through like many of the same stories. But again, this pretty much highlights one of the many problems and one of the many examples of what is wrong with the cartoon community right now. Like, one of the biggest issues that is going on with the community, and really how this mentality of valuing the product over the people behind them has gone really problematic. And especially with the fandom-like entitlement, where they think that they think that they deserve to have more creative control than the people behind the scenes, is honestly ridiculous. And we've seen examples again and again of how things are just going way too far. Now, I do want to clarify, but I just want to say, yes, it is true that this does not reflect on literally everyone in the cartoon community. And this does not reflect on literally everyone in the Amazing Digital Circus fan base. I do agree with Glitch that there are people up there who are great within that community in particular. Like, I get that, but that still doesn't change that there is still a very concerning amount within those groups that still let these things happen. That still doesn't change that Gooseworx got massively harassed to the point where she had to bail out of Reddit and completely delete her Reddit account. Not to mention the harassment that she would still be getting onto Twitter. It still doesn't change that we still have those amount of problematic people that are causing this to happen in the first place. And that's one thing I gotta disagree with Glitch Productions. If the if the whole community, like the entire community of the Amazing Digital Circus really is that great, they wouldn't let that shit happen. They wouldn't allow the harassment to really flourish to the point of Gooseworx to go and get that treatment, which is why it really feels like this response over here really feels like you're just trying to save your hide more so than wanting to save Goose, or to go and call, or to really put your ethics forward and to call out what is wrong. Like, you're honestly just scared of criticizing your own fan base because you just fear of getting that same treatment on your own. So, and that's really, honestly, it's sad to see this unfold. And again, this is one of the many problems within the cartoon community. I could go and list like so many of them. Honestly, like, there are days when I personally feel ready to go and make my own video just listing all the problems that are within the cartoon community, and like even some of the whole things like related to me. Like, honestly, like even the way that I've been treated just because of like, oh, I gave Wish an 8 out of 10 and considered it one of the best animated films of 2023. Like, that's still nothing compared to many of the other issues in which really highlights how the cartoon community is such a serious problem, and how the community is actually destroying the image of animation more so than any Disney live action remake ever could. And this is an example in which it shows the hypocrisy of what they would say. As much as they claim they love indie animation and stuff like that, they treat it no differently than how they would a Disney live action remake or anything that a major animation studio would go and produce, like either Disney, Sony, Illumination, DreamWorks, Pixar, or what have you. That they would go and treat it the same way, where they're so entitled, where they think that they know what the industry deserves. And it just leads to a lot more harm and a lot more people just getting attacked and stuff like that. It's just been, honestly, an absolute nightmare. And we need, what we need, it's not crap like this. What we actually need is for people to go and to call this out. We need to be more vocal about the toxicity of the cartoon community. And this is especially the case with people in the cartoon, with like actual cartoon reviewers. Like we need more people like, say, you know, with Saber, Shafrilla's, Cartoon Sheep, Pan Pizza, Cell Specs. Like we need more of these people to call out even the core problems. And yes, even the stuff that they would do themselves, including some of that toxicity that is within the Disney hate, like all the attacks on all their new films and stuff like that, and even the anger towards the Disney live action remakes. It's gone to the point where like it's debatably becoming much worse than how I was with Sony Animation. And even they have to go and address this as well, because like if you're going to let them enable that type of behavior with the Disney films, then of course that's going to carry on over to projects like Fix, or even with the Amazing Digital Circus, with what it has been displayed over here. We need to take action. We need to be more vocal. This needs to be spread that the cartoon community has gotten seriously bad. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, and at this point, it doesn't matter if it's like, oh, not everyone is like this. There's just a few bad apples. The fact that there are those few bad apples is still a serious problem. And it's becoming a detriment to creators, to animators, and to the whole medium itself. So that's why, like, this is a big reason why I need to go and address this. Like, it's just been absolutely ridiculous and absolutely hypocritical, where the cartoon community claims that they love and support indie animation, but this type of treatment here, nah, that ain't it. You don't give a shit about indie animation. Stop lying. All right, now I'm going to go and take a break, by the way, just to go and reset the timer, because I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of comments. So I'm just going to go and immediately set that, and then I'll go and read what you have to say about this matter, because I'm sure many of you might have a lot to go and discuss about. So I'll give you the time to go and write, and then I'll be right back to go and read what you have to say in the chat wall. All right, welcome back. So let's see what the chat wall has to say. And while I will admit it's not a lot as I thought. Oh, okay, hold on. No, there's more actually coming in than I expect, but let's see what you all have to say. All right, so this is just super sad to see the cartoon community devolve so much like this. No matter how much you love or hate stuff from indie animation, it's never okay to harass them over something you don't like just to cater your ego. This is why the whole animation to cinema bit turns out to be a joke now that we have learned the dark truth about those types of people. I am so sick and tired of harassment being made like this, pardon my language, but the cartoon community needs a fucking wake-up call. Exactly, man. I mean, like, if nobody else is going to go and do it, I mean, like, I'm ready to do it. I'm ready to go and unleash the cartoon community and just make a whole video, just like basically calling them out on every single shot. And if that will ultimately lead to the destruction of the cartoon community as we know it, so be it. Because honestly, the medium is probably better off it's better off without how the fandom is right now. Animation Twitter is the reason why I left that site on September 30th, 2023. That was the last time I encountered after they attacked Wish and Jennifer Lee. That was crossing the line for me. I never looked back, and it was for the best. I've been making videos about how wonderful the creatives actually are compared to what the so-called fandom. Jennifer Lee is basically like a mother figure to me. She gave me a strong advice on continuing doing what I love, and she is simply very talented. But yeah. And I think the comment continued, but I don't see this going on. Oh, okay. Well, no, like, it's just unfortunately Twitch didn't provide more like of what you wrote. Anyways, I really love the Amazing Digital Circus. I get the feeling that it might not have a happy ending since the series took inspiration from a 1960s short horror story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, though I do feel really bad for Gooseworx getting harassed. I mean, come on, you guys, leave her alone and let her do her own thing. This is why I don't go to fandoms, because of how toxic they can be. Also, Animat, have you heard about the news of who's voicing Amy Rose in Sonic the Hedgehog 4? Yes, apparently Anna is gonna be Amy Rose, or more specifically, Kristen Bell. So there's not a lot that I could really go and comment, but I mean, it does sound like a nice choice. We'll see how things go, but no, I mean, like, Kristen Bell is definitely a very talented actress, and the Frozen movies have certainly proved that. So, well, we'll wait and see with how that goes when the movie comes out. Anyways, back to this. I am a fan of the Amazing Digital Circus, and this honestly flat out disgusted. Seeing the fan base go to the point of harassing Gooseworx is just awful. And this really is another prime example of how the cartoon community does not give a crap about people who work on these projects and how fan bases can be toxic. It really does feel like these people have not learned from any of the mistakes done by people like Mr. Enter in the past, or Misanthropony, aka DS Station, with what he is doing right now, where they are so entitled to the point where, and the comment stops again, unfortunately. Anyways, the cartoon community has so many clowns that it's not funny anymore. This is why I stay away from that community as much as possible. I have contributed to some of those problems, and I hope to learn more in the future in order to better myself and to not make those same mistakes. Hey, honestly, great on you, dude. And I mean, I'm the same thing. I've had those toxic traits in the past, and I've learned to grow from it. In fact, the way that I was when looking back, like the way I was acting towards Sony Pictures Animation and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and stuff like that, honestly, it was because I had that same mentality that the cartoon community is right now. When I see like all the hate that they're giving on Disney and the live action remakes, it's pretty much the same thing. In fact, honestly, when I see all those negative reviews of Wish, they're no different than how I was with my Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs reviews. Even with some of the prominent like YouTubers, like when they would do their Wish hate videos, y'all just doing the same shit that I was back then. Y'all ain't any different. I'm just saying. Let's see now. When they are so entitled. Okay. Anyways, any other comments for me to go and read? Just see. Man, I can't believe the animation community is like this, and it's just terrible. It reminds me of an animation channel called Avery Animation, and he was harassed for his animation because his animation doesn't look that good, despite that he's just a freaking teenager. So yeah, this is my example. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's just a shame. Like, I mean, for God's sakes, like, you got to realize, like, some people are just kids. And at that point, it's not really a great idea to go and, like, you know, be that harsh. Anyways, I am also a fan of the Amazing Digital Circus, and I find it's one of the best animated series I've seen. It's such a shame that parts of the fan base is harassing Gooseworx for making Pomni and Jax the focus of the last 2 episodes. It entirely goes against the message of the series, and it goes to show that some fans can't seem to get that creators are still people. Oh yeah, and that's also like the major problem. The thing is with the cartoon community is that regardless of where of what the project is, they value the product, the cartoons themselves, more so than the people behind them. They think that those cartoons have more value than the creators who would go and create them. And that's where you unfortunately end up with this apathetic mentality where they don't care about they don't care about whoever's behind the scenes. If they feel like the cartoon themselves are not up to their standards, then the people are just there in order to go and blame. That's why I feel like nowadays, and this is going to be a hot take, but the people who are still mad at me nowadays, calling me the Sony animation hater, and are still upset at me for being negative towards Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and Hotel Transylvania, those people, they don't give a shit about the people behind the scenes. They don't care about the animators at Sony Pictures Animation. They don't care. Like, for them, it didn't matter how I was behaving and what I was calling the creators, the animators, and those behind the scenes. They only cared about the fact that, oh, I said that those movies are bad, and that's it. And that's why they still have this grudge against me for my opinions, for my comments on that. And this is honestly why not many people talk about this, but I feel like the fact that I'm still living in their heads, like living in there rent free, is why the fandoms of Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs and Hotel Transylvania are stupidly toxic. Like people, like not many people have often brought that up, but I just need to go and address that there. All right. Anyways, I think I'll read one more comment and then we'll go and move on from that. Or we're going to go and end off the episode. There are only a few reasons why I don't bother to ever join them. I just don't want to be someone in part of the crossfires, even if it means to love something that people will hate. I mean, Nickelodeon never catches a break. Even my grandma says if someone doesn't treat you nice, doesn't mean that you have to be a bully too. I could say I am happy to stay in my own lane and not bother to be part of any community. By the way, did you get my Blue Sky post? I found something you worked on. Yeah. We'll definitely be talking about that later. But you know what? That's actually a good lesson to go and close this off with. If someone doesn't treat you nice, doesn't mean that you have to be a bully too. So essentially, just don't be a freaking bully. It doesn't matter what the reason is. Just freaking don't. Okay?